and really get such incredible control in the game.
They really do. And you know what, Tasteless? I would have been 100% with you if I didn't get to speak to TY before the series. I actually got to speak to him a little bit. You know, TY's my boy. We had a bit of a chat there in the green room and just talked about how do you feel about Serral coming up. He actually does not believe in his late game against Serral. He thinks the Infestor is a little bit too strong. Thinks late game Zerg is a little bit too hard for him to deal with, which is a surprise to me, because to me, TY is a late game god. He's so incredibly good at late game.
Yeah, I'm actually shocked to hear that. I would never have guessed he would have.
I mean, unless he just lied to my face, which is always an option. But with this opening of TY, it does seem to be the case. You know, he's always said that he wants to, well, he said to me this morning that he wants to put on a little bit more pressure and try and go into the mid game with a bit of a lead and hopefully end it before it gets too long. And we can see with this double Reaper opening, he is definitely trying to put on a bit of early game pressure against Serral.
Yeah, an opening like this definitely is saying, I want to get an initiation right away. A lot of this is going to be hinged on control. A little bit of an unconventional approach here, and let's see how much damage these Reapers can really do. One thing you want to watch for when these Reapers come in is that because Reapers can heal up, as long as you're not losing any early on, it is something that will definitely increment and get stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah, when you start to get critical mass of Reapers, I mean, there are some madman Terran out there, you know, shout out to, you know, Euthermal, a couple of those guys who like to actually get, you know, attack upgrades with their Reapers and really put on a sauce in the early game. But at the moment, it just looks like a, you know, 2 Reapers, 2x2 here. Nothing's been proxy or anything like that. It's not a 3 racks Reaper build. So it is just pressure with TY still getting, you know, an expansion back at home. So it's definitely not, you know, an early all-in. But he is just trying to slow down the Zerg, force out a few more Zerglings instead of drones, and potentially drone kills if he can.
And again, this forces out quite a bit of lings. You can see TY using different parts of the map. But this is a great play. And these 4 lings were sent in right when Ling's speed was finished, so they can be microed really effectively to kill off additional workers. We only have 1 worker killed off so far as the Reaper's going to come in, and I actually think that's going to be the end of that harass. So very well handled there by TY.
Yeah, pretty decent worker micro. Only losing 1 SCV there. Very nicely handled by the Terran, but just more so the fact that the Zerg got into his base is the annoying part here. And now Serral kind of has the map now that he has Ling speed. These Reapers are just really not that effective anymore. Of course, if they're in a group, if they can launch their KD8 grenades, they'll be just fine. I'm not sure where that one was going, but...
Yeah, I don't know what the I don't know what the story with that was.
But the reason you see this sort of build on New Repugnancy is there's that cliff, right, to the north of the natural that we're looking at right now, the Observer. You have that extra bit of cliff, so the Reaper has a little bit more power, a little bit more staying power in the game, but that is definitely not the end game plan here for TY. We're seeing a starport factory be made back at home, and... probably going to be heading towards a 3rd CC shortly as well, as he's really not a whole lot that Serral can do against TY. He's not really a, you know, one to Bane bust or, you know, really put on early game damage. He's very confident, like even in his interview he said his EBT is pretty good, and if Serral says it's pretty good, then that means it's terrifying for his opponent.
Yeah, you know, these Reapers out now, keep in mind the Reapers don't have a lot of equity in a longer game, so he definitely had to halt that. But, you know, to what you were saying earlier, Maynard, I think it's already been very clearly highlighted. TY does not want to have this be a long, dramatic game. He's trying to control Serral as much as possible. Really, for the Zerg, this is a huge balancing act, because you're trying to force him to make as many attacking units as possible, because if they're making Zerglings, they're not making drones, and he's going to try to control that. And I would imagine coming up here very soon, we're going to have a push from TY.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The armory coming down here for TY means that with the medevac support, he can actually heal the Hellbats when they're in that biological mode, and when they have that extra bit of splash damage to stand and fight against those Zerglings. And considering that's pretty much what Serral's army is, that's a pretty good call from TY to go for that. But Serral, once he gets those Banelings up, if he is patient and pulls the engagement correctly, which he's just showed us time and time again every time he plays in this matchup, especially against Time and Asus Rog with an amazing Baneling flank, stuff like that, that's one for the highlight reels. He is very patient and he engages very, very well. So this needs to go well for TY if he wants to get an edge in this game. That 3rd CC being put behind us as well.
So he pocketed those Marines inside the medevac. He unloads them now. He's going to try to drive back the creep. And this is really a trading game. If he can trade more effectively with the Zerg, it could really end up hurting. The Banelings are coming, but they're actually far from finished. And so these Hellbats are going to come in, and he can actually take several of these out before they finish spawning if he targets them.
And it looks like he's really prioritizing the Queens here over the Banelings. He really wants those big hit point units to go down. Now there's pretty much just Marines and Reapers here, and without the medevac for support, Serral's just going to clean the floor with this push from TY.
Absolutely. I mean, once you lose that medevac, it becomes a very unforgiving situation, and Serral easily swatting away this attack. This means TY is going to have a tough job from here on out, because frankly, there's no way besides harassment like we see here for Terran to get any wins. Terran's most likely not going to be able to push for a while and actually take out a hatchery or kill a lot of queens.
He actually, apart from forcing out a lot of lings, has not been able to slow down Serral too much. He killed a couple queens, which means a little bit less creep spread, maybe, but that's basically it. It's not actual damage. This is some nice damage, though, with this Liberator finding a very nice position here in the main base. Getting some drones coming out of that hatchery as well, and TY, with his multitasking the Liberators, very rarely will lose them without finding value.
As you can see, oh, hold on, he's actually going to come back in here.
Yeah, Serral needs to dance the spore around here, or he'll lose the queen.
Yeah. Oh, okay, the queen does manage to get under, and so that's the end of that Liberator harass. Meanwhile, the creep is going to continue to spread out here. Stim is still a little bit under halfway done, so again, infantry fights are not going to be a realistic thing. It's going to be Hellions and Liberators from here on out until he has that Stim upgrade, and then maybe there's going to be an opportunity for TY to try to turn this game around.
Yeah, the Liberator here is these harassment. These Hellions are kind of his map control, trying to sort of gut check the Zerg to make sure these defenses are in place, making sure that Serral's spending a little bit of APM to keep on top of the Terran's army. And this is tough for TY. You know, you can't really get into that third easily, especially considering that the creep's starting to spread over there. And going up a ramp into the natural is dangerous when you don't have high ground vision, you have no medevac or flying unit here, and there's banelings for the Zerg opponent. He could just appear right in your face with his banelings, and then everything disappears. So you can see he has to scan here, gets high ground vision, gets a couple creep tumors, which is always nice, but Serral is still holding on, taking very little damage.
Note how Serral's hugging the left side of the map here. TY is instead staying in his quadrant. Serral is eventually going to have to start expanding a little bit further forward here. I think the lower center base is another desirable location, but as far as it goes for TY, none of these spots are particularly easy to push. I think there might be a chance he pushes the top spot just because there's no creep, but again, no easy plans here for TY.
You don't see Contaminate used as much, this sort of way too often here from Serral. Contaminating the starport so that the medevac production is halted, not going for tank production or anything like that. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. Less medevacs mean that the buyer has a little bit less staying power, means that the drop play is going to be delayed as well. So cool stuff from Serral using the Overseer. For all you ladder Zergs back at home that want a little bit of a tip there. TY, unfortunately, with a little bit of a supply block at the moment, but he's starting to work without the depots finishing up. And Serral, I mean, this is where TY wanted to avoid. He didn't want it to get towards the late game, and Serral is marching his way there, Tasteless. Infestation Pit over halfway done. Yeah,
one of the things about Serral is he's really proven how elastic Zerg can be in the late game. And so, as long as this game goes on for a while, I think Serral's absolutely going to be in his comfort zone. So, Serral's using these links to try to counterattack in and keep TY as honest as possible. But TY is going to be able to push out. He's headed over here to the top left corner, and this might be the most important part of this entire game. TY needs to make this push work. If not, I think Serral is going to grow at an out-of-control rate.
This is so common in TVZ when both players really don't do anything to each other when it gets to this part of the game. Terran has an army supply advantage. They have a scary push with siege tanks or winter mines, whichever way you want to go for it. And the onus is on the Zerg to not take damage here. If the Zerg doesn't take damage, they have a very strong lead going into the late game. But if Terran manages to get drone kills, hatchery kills, anything like that, he's going to be sitting pretty to start to really snowball.
Okay, he's coming up. I got to say, this is about as good of a spot as
really
TY
nice spot.
could have asked for here. He's stimming this hatchery down, and Serral's going to have to make a decision. Does he try to dive on top of this and save it, or is he going to go ahead and sack the hatchery?
Looks like he's going to have to sack it. He just didn't feel confident enough to get those banelings in firing range of those Marines. So TY takes a fantastic engagement there. But Serral setting up for the flank. Lings and banelings coming in from the backside. TY's going to have to lift up and get on out of there.
And there's only one medevac, so escape for most of these units is not an option. Meanwhile, down here at the bottom of the map, TY dropping into this location and could easily force another cancel.
Definitely, and that's going to be a cancel for sure, Tasteless, and even taking some creep out with him as well on the way out of here. Checking out at the Zerg Hotel, a little bit of extra from the minibar. This is just so nice for the Terran. Knocking the Zerg down to 3 bases momentarily as Serral's trying to double expand and get it back up. TY still with that presence to the north side. Not many hit points on this hatchery. And he's just waiting for those links to go down, and then the hatchery and the drone's going to be next.
Yeah, the medevac actually runs out of energy. That was the same medevac that picked up in that fight earlier and came back. He was not able to take that out, but I want to point this out right here, right now. TY, 2 major victories. TY can absolutely continue to pull this game out. We talked about that push being the most important part in this game leading up to that moment. He succeeded. Now the question is, can TY take this and deliver it into a victory?
He's been trading so well against the Zerg that his army supply, that army supply lead that the Terran has had for a while here, has actually been exacerbated rather than being rectified by the Zerg. So he actually has an even better army at the moment. Serral still does not have tier 3 tech here. You know, he does have an Ultra 10, an Ultra Cavern just about to finish, and that's definitely going to help out. The accidental swarm host that no one wanted is also on the way of a Serral, so even gods do make mistakes. And here come the Marines again with another low hit point hatchery to the south.
Another drop over here. He's going to go ahead and pick up. There's not much more he could do in that location, but more importantly is this push up here to the north. Because when you see siege tanks with that, Terran's intending to actually set up a position and try to take a fight. And so both of those medevacs, the ones we saw on the center left and the one at the bottom, are being used to try to make the Zerg in a bad position. And so this push here, if TY can do this again, I think he's going to be that much closer to actually winning this game.
I'm getting very worried for Serral, man. His defenses on the south and also on the north look a little bit lackluster. Here comes the rest of his army to try and save this hatchery. And it looks like he will be able to save it, but the north side is definitely where the brunt of the force of the Terran is. And the Ultras, they're not quite out yet. They take a long time to build. They're very, very expensive. They also don't have chitinous or +2 armor or anything like that, so they're a little bit squishy. TY also starting to throw in Liberators and Marauders into his composition to make that late game tech a little bit easier for him to deal with.
Once again, Terrence pushing out. And I got to say, TY is succeeding so well. Now, he stayed very tight. He was on 3 bases for this entire game up until this moment. He's now taking a 4th. But Serral's been garbage compacted a little bit here. He's been squished from the top. He's having to take this lower corner here. Now, is this going to be an overextension, though?
Looks like Serral might have enough here. He does not want TY to have that tank position. The Banelings zoning those Marines away from the Ultras. But there's actually this tank position. It ended up being a nice little SimCity there for the Terran. So he gets one of the Ultras down at least. But it does look like Serral just has a little bit too much.
Yeah, that was an overextension for sure there by TY. It probably would have been wiser to go back and macro up a little bit more and then come in with a push that would have been safer, but I get the idea. He's trying to take this lead and actually push it to the next level.
I mean, he just doesn't want to give Serral breathing room. Zerg in general, you don't want to be left alone so that they can drone up and get all their tech out and get a good number of Ultras, get their upgrades sorted. Serral is the last Zerg in the entire planet. You want to leave any room to breathe. You want to make sure that he's being chokeholded, that you're keeping the pressure on, and that's when even the best player in the world can make mistakes.
Another push coming in here. Now, if Serral can win this fight, that's going to be huge, but liberation zones have been set up. It's a very narrow area for melee units to try to come through, but I think there's just too much.
Yeah.
And actually, TY getting pushed away into a location that's actually not far from this expansion, so he can even push further and try to take this location out.
And that's the main lifted off Tasteless, so that's not a planetary, and that's definitely not what you want as a Terran, to have your 4th exposed like that. These Ultras ignoring it though, going straight for the throat of TY. Not many hit points left on these Ultras, so it looks like 3 of them are about to go down, but Serral definitely putting the pressure on this side of the map means that he can actually be free and clear on the other side of the map to do what he wants to do. Being a little sloppy with the Ultras in the south here, taking a lot of shots from those Liberators.
This is like a StarCraft cinematic
cutscene. The
cutscene.
SCVs are all stacked up. Doesn't quite finish them off, though.
Normally, you don't just have Ultras by themselves.
Definitely, yeah. Generally not.
So I think that was probably a little bit too risky there by Serral. He probably should have had that gripped a little bit better, but I think he saw an opportunity. He said, okay, I'm going to run with this and try to get in here. But losing a lot of those Ultras is going to give TY the opportunity now to do this counter push.
Serral did remake those Zerglings, and he has some Banelings as well. Not that many Banelings, but definitely a lot of Zerglings, which do have Adrenaline plus to attack, so they're quite scary to the Terran. A lot of these SCVs damaged from that earlier Ultralisk coming in and gets 5, just snapped like that from that economy of TY. His economy isn't too bad, though. The Terran can certainly go toe-to-toe for the Zerg, but Serral's getting towards that part of the game where he starts to get unbeatable. When he gets towards the Great Aspire, when he gets towards Vipers, that's when TY hopefully is going to have an answer for him, or he's going to start to fold as the game gets longer and longer, as that really is Serral's stomping ground.
All right, we've got this one Swarm host coming out here.
Yeah.
That's the hero unit. That's Serral in there.
I'll show my father.
Serral loses the game.
I'll show my father. I'll be the best unit ever.
You know, Terrans, the way that TY played this game, by the way, Terran went really hard on just the 3 bases. That's when we saw the orbital from the main get pushed forward here. Oh, hold on a second. We actually got another huge drop here inside the main with these liberation zones getting set up.
And this is a scary one, Taste. There's 5 Liberators sieged up on top of this bio, and there's a bit of tech here for the Zerg as well. Serral with a nice run by. Oh, he was waiting for the Queens. The Queens are here for mass transfusion on the Ultras to get rid of that ground army, and then they can block these Liberators out of the sky, and even some of the medevacs as well. Serral does lose some expensive units, but TY took so much damage to his army supply and economy during this.
Yeah, that was a pretty ambitious move to try to take the main there. A lot of times if you can't win a fight over these expansions, it's better to go in there and try to eat out a lot of that tech. But instead, that was actually crushed pretty badly, and Serral may be able to outgrow TY at this moment.
Yes, TY's looking a little bit desperate here. He's pushing with his bio and Marauders, still trying to put the pressure on the Zerg, but Serral's really stabilized with a great-looking army. Lee's coming in from that cancel of the base kill on the right-hand side, looking to wrap around this Terran force and force him back. The Corruptors are just blocking these Liberators. Easy-peasy pickings here for Serral. The Queens are here as well,
GG.
And he takes a very clean game 1.
Nicely done there by Serral. Now, that was a back and forth.
Yeah.
That was a real match we had there. I actually thought TY was going to take it when he had won that fight in both the north and the south on the map. I thought, okay, here we go. Okay, let's try to kill him even faster here. The last game, let's remember, guys, it was not an all-in, okay? I know sometimes we'll see 2 barracks and say, oh, well, this is very risky. The last game was a control build where he's trying to limit how many drones are coming out.
Warcraft 5, cool.
In this game, he's really trying to get into Serral's face and do damage in a much more pronounced way.
Yeah, this is a little bit more committed here, as you'd imagine, with your barracks being on the other side of the map. Looks like Serral's going to scout it with the Overlord, though, which is a bad start for TY.
This is unfortunate placement if this is scouted like this.
Yeah,
now,
it
Serral
is scouted.
may whip the Overlord around. Okay, he actually doesn't care. He's just going to show him that he scouted it.
Now, the Zerg is obviously locked in their build. You can't get a spawning pool earlier than what he's getting at right now because of the choice to go hatch first. So, well, so what this does for Serral would means that he can pull drones a little bit earlier. He can interrupt the bunker production, which is definitely the priority here for the Zerg. Getting rid of these SCVs and forcing those Marines away from the bunkers.
Yeah, he's beginning to push forward now. The drones have been pulled. The SCV continues to produce the bunker. And the drones, in a lot of ways, will just body block and interfere with the Marines being able to enter cleanly into the bunker. The second SCV does get up, though. There's 2 SCVs on this side, which means it's going to be a lot harder to actually prevent this bunker from starting.
And 3 Marines.
Yeah, and as Serral pulls away, I think this bunker's going to finish. Good targeting.
Yeah, the bunker certainly looks like it's going to finish up here, but the Lings are out for Serral, and the Marines are nowhere near it, Tasteless.
5 drone kills so far, but with the drones and the Lings, the Zerg can actually take this fight. Was that a Marine going up?
No, I'm sorry.
That was a Reaper coming up here.
Yeah, this is actually something that Special showed us a little bit in WCS, and TY Special, of course, do share builds. So with the Reaper follow-up, Serral needs to delay Ling speed here because he doesn't have, he's got all these drones and Lings on the front line with these Queens. So this means the Reapers can really dance around their early game Zerg army, and this is a great strategical decision from TY.
This is a great way to transition here. I love this because the Marines didn't have any utility at that point. So you switch into Reapers, and this is like the next phase of the rush where Serral has to continue to defend and deflect all these attacks. Otherwise, TY is going to continue to get a lead. Now, TY is expanding behind this, and there's really no opportunities for Zerg to counterattack just yet. But TY does have 2 major production facilities in the middle of the map. That's eventually going to have to be moved, and that might be where Serral can find his footing.
Certainly could be. There's definitely some options here for the Zerg. This game is certainly not over yet, but I'd definitely give the edge to TY with this decision in the early game. He definitely found the trades that he wanted. I mean, obviously you want to get the hatchery kill, you want the bunker to get up and loaded with Marines, but this is the next best thing, and there's a glass half full here for the Terran. As he still continues to amass Reapers, but picking up one of those barracks for a scout as he gets his factory back at home. As TY's taking both these gases, also going for a very quick third base. So this is very much what Special like to do here and there against Zerg in the WCS circuit.
And this is something, this little barrack scout technique is something that Morrow really educated the entire world about in the way that proxies go. Is, you know, now that the rush is done, just go ahead and sack the rack, send it into their main, and confirm what they're doing. Because it's still a game of responses, right? So he's going to come in here. Now, he's also going to come in and try to actually hit with these Reapers, and these Reapers can do quite nicely against these Marines, against these Lings, especially if they can get those grenades set up. But again, most importantly, TY scouts in here. He says, okay, what is Serral's next step? Because TY is going to need to stay ahead.
Well, like I said, there's a lot of options for the Zerg. Like, does Serral drop a Roach Warren or a Baneling Nest to go for a counter bust or something aggressive here? TY's barracks just making sure that the Zerg's being kept honest. This hatchery doesn't have a ton of hit points on it, and normally I don't see Reapers kill structures, but that is quite low.
Yeah, this is probably going to be saved here by Serral, but
close.
A little bit of a dicey moment there. The Reapers are continuing to roam, looking for creep, tumors, Zerglings, stray drones, anything they can do to do damage. Back at home, we have the starport nearing finishing. So we're going to have medevacs eventually come into play here. And then that might be where this harassment gets much more pronounced. Because for now, the Lings with speed will beat Reapers if they can just catch up to them. That's why we see TY hugging certain corners on the map.
Now this, you were talking about the, I didn't even get to say my sentence to look smart because it's already happening right in front of us, Stasis, but this is one of those maps where Terran actually does really like to go for that BC style. Yeah. This, you know, we saw Maru do it in WCG, we saw TY do it himself in this map quite a bit in this matchup, but it is going to be scouted by Serral by the looks of things. Actually, that's the fusion core right there in the back of the natural. He may not have seen it with the Overlord.
Yeah, but he might be able to just map this out on instinct here. You know, Terran, because they have to stay back, you might as well try to rush towards that battle cruiser other than maybe having a little bit of a squishy push that could come out here. And so, again, we're going to find out exactly how Serral deals with the battle cruiser play, which has really been a headache for Zergs all over the world.
It certainly has, and Serral has, you know, even said himself that the style is quite tricky to deal with. But Serral, he's making a lot of Roaches right now. Now, he knows that the Hellions are certainly going to be hitting him as he scouted them. But with the Roaches, once he cleans up the Reapers and the Hellions, they are actually relatively frightening to a BC guy. As the BCs kind of take a long time to build, and when you're stuck on Hellion Reapers and you're up against a lot of Roaches, it's not the composition you want as Terran.
You did make a really good point, actually, because the BCs take a long time to build. There is going to be time for Zerg to try to come together with a plan. Now, Roaches coming across the map.
Yeah, and what does TY do against this? He's just like, oh, well, guess I'll do some damage and slow them down a little bit.
Yeah, the battle cruisers are still in the mail. It's actually funny how much you can slow Roaches down doing this. Yeah. With the grenades coming out here. You're not going to probably kill any Roaches, but you're at least going to curb the amount of damage that can happen back at home.
And he splits one from the back there. Serral actually saving it by turning into a Ravager there. Nice little move there from Serral.
Oh, these Lings are coming here, trying to surround.
There's 4 Hellions here on the ramp, though. Can TY cut through these Lings and secure his exit? Looks like that is the case. So these units stay alive. TY's trying to get those extra couple factories down because he wants to go to BC Battle Mech here. Oh, that's quite a few Reapers and Hellions here, Tasteless.
I think Serral actually might have made a pretty grave error here. You know, one thing about Roaches in this situation is they can be kited and take a lot of damage, but they also will receive a lot of damage as they try to head back home. Now, here's that battlecruiser warp in. The question is, how will Serral handle this? Because as long as the battlecruiser stays alive, the Zerg is losing a lot, and the Terran loses virtually nothing.
So far, not so good. It looks like Serral's got a lack of queen count here. He's got, oh, there we go, extra few from the low ground. So these 5 queens definitely enough to dance with that BC. The Roaches definitely also high enough in count to be able to handle the Reapers and the Hellions in the low ground. Really cool play here from TY. He also got concussive shell, but didn't show us any Marauder production. He is definitely going straight into mech, as we can see with the mech upgrades coming down, Yamato coming down, and also the double armory. And we're expecting some Cyclones here. Or actually, maybe with +1 attack, it could be straight into tanks for TY. Is generally, if you're going Cyclones, you want that armor upgrade first.
Yeah. He's going to continue to poke and prod with the BC play. And as we develop this mech, one thing, it's sort of a reversal from what we had before, is when you know that the mech's coming, then the Zerg is the one that has a little bit of time to respond. But with the headache of the battlecruiser coming around, it's going to be much tougher for Serral here.
Yeah, certainly. So TY going to try and dive into the natural here, and this is one of the reasons why this map isn't too bad for Zerg generally, because it's hard to get those run-bys, but I tell you what, this one looks pretty damn good, Tasteless. 11 drones.
Yeah, especially on this map, to get a run-by like that is the dream. And with the battlecruiser already roaming here and continue to do damage, this is really getting hard for Serral.
Yeah, this is when Serral starts to look a little bit rough, man. Like when he lost that series against Stats in the Asus Rogue. I know it's a different matchup, but he lost a lot of his economy in the early to mid game, which made it easier for Stats to finish him off later. And TY has definitely done a lot of damage to the Zerg. Look, Serral's trying to get tier 3 stuff happening now, like Infestors. He's trying to get his upgrades up and all that sort of stuff, but he's spending all of his lava to replenish his drones. The Terran is up almost 20 workers here.
Beautifully done here. Now, TY's had a lead before. We saw this in game 1. The key thing, I think, specifically against Serral, is you are not allowed to overextend when you get that lead. Serral is able to hold off a surprising amount in pushes. There's periods where I really thought he was not going to be able to handle something, and he actually deals with it so gracefully. So I think TY is taking a better approach this time around. He's harassing as much as humanly possible, even letting those Reapers do damage at 9 minutes. That's pretty unheard of, you know, to finally get them in there and do that. And we see additional CCs going down. So TY in this game is going to try to catapult us into an even longer game here and try to cement that lead.
That is the case. I mean, surely it could go in a later game, but it looks like TY actually wants to kill him before Infestors are a problem.
I'm sorry. Actually, he's pulling SCVs right now.
That's right. So he's bringing some of the boys here for some repairs, but the idea here is to make sure that the Infestor count isn't too high, that Neural isn't too much of a problem. TY said to me earlier he just doesn't want to deal with Infestors and Neurals, so he wants this game to try and end it early. But I don't know if Serral's going to let this happen. He's getting his army supply a little bit higher, but it still looks like Terran definitely has the better army.
Also, TY stretching out to the upper right here. Serral hugging the very left side of the map. He doesn't have a lot of creep out here. You know, the more creep you have, the more time you have to try to take different fights at different angles, and especially against mech units, that's really important, right? Try to get in there and get that damage done. So here are the Infestors out now.
Yep, and they do have Neural. They don't have a ton of energy. I don't think he got Pathogen Glands. I don't remember if he got that upgrade, but it doesn't look like the Infestors have tons of energy just yet, but they definitely have enough to make a difference in this fight. Blue Flame not quite done for TY, so he doesn't have that bonus damage on the Hellions against the light units, but he does have these BCs, and he does have a scary amount of tanks.
This is that moment where the battlecruisers then merge with the rest of the army and then become this powerhouse attacking force.
Becomes Voltron.
Yeah. Basically. Okay, he's coming forward now. A few corrosive biles are shot out, but it doesn't appear that they did very much damage at all. A small counterattack here with these Roaches.
Yeah, nice moves from Serral, putting some presence on the board, but TY's going to try and Yamato down these Infestors, and he does get a couple of them. The Biles, though, getting one of those BCs. That is Serral's actual only consistent anti-air that's got, like, good burst damage here, along with the Queens. Oh, these Roaches still finding more damage here. TY not respecting these Roaches on the north side of the map. They're getting deeper into his infrastructure.
So TY has set up his foothold. But here he's going to try to artillery this down. Great denial there by those Ravagers for Serral. He's actually pushing it back just slightly. The tanks are not in range of the hatchery, so Serral's still in pretty good shape. You can see TY fishing with the idea of trying to come up that ramp and then saying, this isn't very safe. And actually, I think there's a chance. Yeah, Serral's just going to go for it. He's going to try to bust him.
Yeah, he brought a few Queens there, lost a couple of them immediately, but he wants to really break this line of TY. Getting those Biles down, another battlecruiser goes down, some of the tanks went down as well. These 4 tanks to the north side doing insane damage to the ground army of Serral. But if he can get rid of the BCs and push this back, he has a hope. TY is still starting to trade all right down here in the low ground. He's got +2 on those tanks. They are hitting really hard.
Nicely done there by TY. He still has this foothold. He has not lost that, but Serral is macroing out at a pretty scary pace, excuse me. What he really wants to do is get those Ravagers there and hit that tank clump, that clump of 4 tanks. If he can actually hit that right in the middle, he's going to annihilate all that, and TY will have no way to do more damage in this push.
Well, Serral doesn't have a whole lot of gas to play with, so he's throwing in some lings. That BC gets picked off there. TY losing that big air unit. He actually doesn't have high ground vision anymore without scans or these Hellions on the high ground.
No spotter.
So now he can buy all these down. Exactly, you're absolutely right, Tasteless.
And he's pushed that away a little bit further, and I don't know if TY is going to try to double down on this position, but there's no way this push is going to last. Serral has survived this attack and now has freedom to expand and grow on the map.
The fact that Serral didn't die right there is a testament to how good of a player he is. Every other Zerg in the world would be dead right now, but he held on. That's incredible.
Yeah, that was pretty insane, and he did a really good job by, when he got rid of that battlecruiser. I know that a lot of times we'll think of a battlecruiser as like the unit that's taking the fight. In that case, it was actually there to give high ground vision. So when he took that out, then he was able to come in there and gun down the rest of those tanks. Really nicely done.
And very nicely done by TY as well, catching a good line of drones there, getting 8 of them. Very nice, very nice. You know, Serral hasn't been able to get to that comfortable drone count just yet, especially considering TY keeps finding this econ damage. Oh, a nice cluster of drones getting barbecued right there. 17 of them going down so far, and there's those Hellions getting finished off. So, wow. Very nice run by TY. Relatively inexpensive for him. He's got a lot of minerals to play with. And now he's throwing in Liberators into the mix as well, and he's very good at controlling them and keeping them out of harm's way. Yeah,
we've seen TY go back into a harassing phase here as he's just trying to get some damage. Now, TY is actually bigger than Serral right now.
Yes.
He has more supply, he has more bases. It's one of the funny features about how this will actually tech up. And, oh my God, 33 drones.
Yeah, this is really rough for Serral. He did such a great job of that engagement, but handling these Blue Flame Hellions has definitely not been his strength in the mid-game here or in the late game. TY finding some very critical damage. He's up over 30 workers right now. That is devastating to the economy of Serral. 41 drones have died, and he's trying to get up on a hive right now. Look at how small his bank is, Tasteless, and look at how bad his upgrades are.
TY is at 80 workers. Maney.
Tassels.
I mean, this is
rough.
That's a lot, and he has plenty of extra CCs to drop mules too. So I mean, TY is now an economic powerhouse. Remember, we heard Serral say, TY say that he actually wanted to avoid late game. Well, after what happened in game 1, he is full on late game against Serral, and he has a pretty proper lead here. So the question now is, how is Serral going to deal with this? I think most of that's going to come down to the bigger fights. Well, Serral needs to have perfect engages here.
He definitely needs to not lose any more drones, but he also needs to be able to get that Infestor count and get that Roach Ravager count up a little bit higher as well, because there is so many tanks here, and Serral has 0 Vipers on the map right now, so no Blinding Clouds to stop those tanks.
One of the little mini games that you have here is you're trying to force the siege tanks to siege with the Ravagers, and then Corrosive Bile the sieging siege tanks, because those are the ones you're guaranteed to do damage on.
TY going for some Hellbat dunks here on the Zerg army, forcing Serral back a little bit, giving those tanks room to be able to leapfrog forward here, get closer and closer to the Zerg's infrastructure. Bile's getting a couple kills here, but Serral, it just feels like his composition just isn't right here. It just isn't exactly what he wants against this army. Not having any Blinding Clouds really does make this hard.
Okay, he's coming in now. TY needs to make this attack work. Serral, again, he's very good at finessing against these tanks. He comes in there, he guns him down, he darts back, but the Ravager count's getting lower and lower and lower. Oh, great Neural Parasite here.
Couple Neurals on those Cyclones, because why not? Takes them out of the mix. They were kind of the frightening unit, I guess, at the front line for TY. I'm actually a little surprised that the Cyclones are being thrown in here. But, I expected more tanks, I guess.
I actually, in the fight, almost didn't see them because I was watching the tanks and the Ravagers so much.
Well,
nicely done! He can gun the tanks down in the back!
Certainly can. These tanks are going to start shooting their own kind here, taking them out one at a time for that high ground.
Oh, he's so good.
He is so good,
This is so smart. And then, of course, he can easily kill those tanks as they're neural parasited. That's a word.
It is a word now.
So, GG.
Oh, my God.
TY, who has